Hello out there and welcome to Dolleerious. This is my very first video attempt. Please bear with me, it's going to be a little bit clunky. Many different camera angles attempted until I found a halfway decent one. Yes, my head will probably get in the way quite often, so sorry about that. So I'm quite new to customizing dolls, but there are so many incredible artists out there who I am obsessed with watching on YouTube and love everything about them. I will mention a few of them in this video and you will find the links to their YouTube pages below this one. Check them out, they are so amazing. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of dolls that I've already made just so you can see a bit of my previous work, and then let's dive straight into my first videoed custom. Now, from above the sea to below. Oh, so dramatic. I love it. Yes, a deep sea mermaid is the plan. So think an anglerfish, like nasty. And definitely with one of those appendage thingies on its forehead with a little light that attracts fish. Definitely one of those. I also love those fish that have like bioluminescence. They kind of glow and they pulse with light under the water like this. Yeah, I'm gonna have a play with that, but overall I think I want her to be kind of dark. A dark mermaid, yeah. I've chosen this Lagoona blue doll to be my mermaid. I've already removed her makeup with acetone and I've cut her hair very, very short. She has a kind of a fishy look already, being a Lagoona blue doll, which is going to be useful. I love those big, slightly bulbous eyes. I think that's going to work really well for this deep sea dark mermaid. For my mermaid's tail, I'm going to use technique that the incredible Dollee mixtures used for their ice mermaid, which was beautiful. I will put the link below. They attached the top sections of the doll's legs together, sawed off the lower legs and used one lower leg to make the bottom section of the tail, and it was so beautiful. I'm going to slightly nick it. So Miss Lagoona has had her bum cheek sanded down, and I'm going to do the other one, and this should allow her tail to bend backwards slightly and give her a little bit more range of movement in her tail. So she's got a rather racy little thong number on now. The range of movement was really good, but I actually lost a lot of that once I put the epoxy on because I used a little bit too much. Lesson learnt for next time. Next is to soften the doll's head, soften the vinyl with a hairdryer, which enables me to take the head off more easily without doing any damage to the neck peg. And I have broken 3 neck pegs to date, and they're a pain to fix. It also melts all the gross glue inside the doll's head, which enables me to go in through the neck hole with my tweezers and scoop out all the melted glue and hair, which is gross but like weirdly satisfying. It's like hairy snot. If you can imagine hairy snot, that's what it's like. I have cut both legs off just above the knee joint, and no, I didn't draw a nice neat line to follow, and yes, it was a car crash. It turned out okay in the end. So what I did next was drill holes in both sides of both legs so I can pinion them together using craft wire. I think this next bit's pretty self-explanatory, so I will stop waffling. use your teeth just because you are too lazy to get pliers. I decided to sand down the toe and the heel for a better tail shape.
And now we sculpt!
Okay, listen, the internet. I should be wearing gloves to work with epoxy, yes, but I've got really small hands and the gloves get all wrinkled up and I can't do it properly, so I'm sorry, I'm not wearing them, but you definitely should. This prodding, slightly undignified, is just to keep the epoxy away from her hip joints so she doesn't lose movement. I'm using water here just to smooth the transition between the epoxy and the plastic. You can see the wire here poking through the wet epoxy. This is because in my haste and excitement I forgot to hot glue on top of the wire armature before I put the clay on, but once the epoxy was dry it was fine. For the tail fin, I cut a slit in the base of her tail and hot glued in craft wire, and then I used smaller pieces of wire which I also glued in to shape this fin, and I used plastic for that. This is the plastic. It is actually a vinyl sleeve from one of my husband's records. I did secure permission, I didn't nick it. I used the hot tip of the glue gun to melt the two sheets of the plastic to each other over the armature, and then secured it all with hot glue. I also used the hot glue to build up a kind of a bony shape to the fin, kind of like a fishbone shape, just to give it some more texture. Her tail is poseable. I'm so happy. She's got a back fin and two side fins that I made in exactly the same way. I used my Dremel to cut a slit in the epoxy sculpt and glued the fins in using 2-part epoxy glue. So here I've started to blush the body, but I already gave the doll ribs and slightly more natural looking breasts using epoxy sculpt. Sorry YouTube if you don't like nipples, put your finger over the screen or something. I also made spines on her back. I drilled into the plastic, inserted wire, glued the wire in, and then used hot glue to build up the spines. I also used hot glue on her fingers to elongate them and create a sort of a claw-like shape, because she already had webbed hands, which was great, but I wanted her to have kind of creepy claws. Before I started blushing, I applied 2 layers of watered down acrylic paint in this pale blue colour. I used a makeup sponge as opposed to a brush because it just eliminates any brush marks and you get a nice flat surface to work on. So I totally forgot to say, before I did anything to the doll's body, I used nail buffers to remove the glossy surface from the doll, just so everything has a better chance of sticking to the surface. Once I did that, then I did the acrylic paint, and then I went in with Mr. Super Clear, a couple of layers of that to seal the doll, and then I'm using Faber-Castell's soft pastels to blush the body. So I have a piece of sandpaper and I choose the colours that I want to use and I scratch them on the surface of the sandpaper, which creates a powder, and then I can just dip my makeup brushes into the powder and go ahead and blush the doll like I'm doing now. So because of this kind of deep sea vibe I'm going for, I don't want her skin to be too colourful, so I'm trying to use greys, bluish tones and just white to pick out the areas of shadow and highlight, so her skin stays quite muted, and then I can pick out detail with colour later on. This is me making her aforementioned appendage for her head out of hot glue and a piece of wire. Please just enjoy this.
Ouch!
Needless to say, I learned to hold it upside down. Face up time. So Mrs. got 2 coats of pale blue acrylic on her face, just like she did with her body. Again, I used a makeup sponge so the surface was nice and flat. I have rerouted her hair off camera. I had great difficulty with her hair. I tried so many different things. I tried yarn. It was horrible. It looked like she had an animal on her head. So there's no footage of the hair, but basically I nicked some hair from another doll that I had. You'll see it later. And now I'm just using soft pastels like I did with her body to blush her face. In terms of what I have done with the blushing for her face, I have tried to keep her face looking quite flat. I don't want it to be too angular, apart from the cheekbones. I want her eye sockets not to look too deep because I'm going for this really big-eyed look. I want her eyes to look slightly protuberant. Her nose is quite flat anyway, which is useful. I'm going to keep that. Not doing too much contouring around the nose other than the tip. And just a little bit of highlight for her brow and her cheeks. Now I'm using a very sharp watercolour pencil to mark the corners of her mouth and her nostrils. Finally, time to draw her eyes. Again with a very sharp pencil. I'm staying relatively close to the original mould of the doll's eyes because she does have big eyes already. I'm bringing it in slightly so I can give her a little bit more of a lid, but I'm staying pretty close. You'll see quite often that I flip the doll's head upside down to draw the left eye as you're looking at it, because I'm right-handed, and if you turn the doll's head upside down, you're not hiding the face with your hand, so you can compare more easily and get a more symmetrical finish. I am not great with symmetry, so flipping the head upside down is a really useful trick. I started drawing her irises, and then later on I decided just to give her totally black eyes for a kind of again like a deep sea vibe. I changed my mind a lot with this doll. The finished product is remarkably different from what was in my head at the beginning. Oh, I really do. I struggle so much with the symmetry for eyebrows. Even the little upside down head trick doesn't help much, but you know what? My eyebrows are wonky. Maybe it'll give her a quizzical look. She's judging you. She's a judgy fish. Here you can see she now has a little more detail on her eyelid. They're more defined. I've used a charcoal grey pencil to add shadow to her lids, and I'll use a white pencil for highlights. The doll had some defects on her face already. You could probably see them at the beginning of the video. And I just used the pencil to kind of draw those out a little bit, just to make it look like she maybe has some scarring or something on her face. Here she is with those black eyes that I mentioned she ended up with. This is a last little bit of highlight for the lids, and her face up is done. I'm adding glossy varnish to her eyes. She ended up with quite a few coats of this, and under the varnish are some catch lights, which I painted with acrylic paint, and also I used some tiny silver sequins just to add some more detail to the eyes underneath the varnish, just to bring a bit of life to them, because actually the black on its own was just a bit flat. I bought these glow-in-the-dark powdered pigments, which I mixed with acrylic varnish, and I went a bit mad. I painted her tail. She ended up with a load of dots and spots all over her face and her body because I just couldn't stop. I should point out that after all this not being able to stop business, I didn't like the blue. It was too blue, so I ended up blushing over the top of most of the glow-in-the-dark stuff that I'd used and covering it up. The end result of that is a doll that doesn't really glow in the dark very much at all. She does a little bit, but not even enough for me to be able to take a decent picture of it. So I sort of let the glow-in-the-dark thing fall by the wayside a little bit. Here I am stenciling scales with acrylic paint and a piece of underlay from a dress. I saw this technique on Kyros Workshop's YouTube channel for their Neptune alien doll that they made, and it worked so well. So having decided that the blue glow-in-the-dark pigment was too blue, naturally I learned from my mistakes and decided to cover her entire body with bright pink spots, of course. Look, what a surprise. She doesn't like the pink. She's going in with the nail varnish on the top of the pink to tone down the pink. Good grief. To be fair, I actually did really like how this turned out after the nail varnish, which is a kind of an iridescent blue. It's hard to see in the video, but slightly glittery. So I went over all of the pink dots and then ended up adding a lot more sparkly nail varnish. Like I said earlier, I couldn't stop. When I elongated her fingers with the glue gun, I also used the hot glue to make these sort of veins, like thick veins running up her wrists. I don't know why I did it, but it matched her tail. So now I'm just adding some of that glittery nail varnish over the top. What did I tell you? See, look, dots everywhere. She can't stop. She's a monster. I had the same issue with her spines being too blue after the glow-in-the-dark pigment, so I'm just blushing them like I did with her tail. Then I am covering her with even more glitter.
Oh, glitter!
Seriously though, I do hope that Barry M still makes that nail varnish because I really like it and I used up every single drop on this damn doll. Yeah, I'm just adding some more of those teeny tiny sequins to her face and hair, just sticking them on with tiny dots of tacky glue. I forgot also to say that when I built up her fingers with hot glue, I also built her ears up, just gave them a bit more of a fishy look, and I've left them kind of translucent. They've just had a coat of nail varnish. I'm not sure that you can see it on this video, but I added some very, very thin blue veins to her face and to her upper body. JackyOhhh always puts beautiful veins on her dolls and I love it. I've never tried it before, but I thought for this one I wanted to give it a go. Okay, for her hair, I cut it short and I covered it with acrylic varnish to give her this kind of wettish, slicked back sort of look. And now I'm just twisting some craft wire around just to give her hair a little bit of detail, just to make it look like she made an effort. Here I've got some sequins. I'm just cutting them into smaller pieces so they don't look too much like sequins. And then I'm gluing them to the back of her head where the wire is.
So she just gets a quick trim just to tidy her up a bit at the end, just so she's presentable.
So she's finished. She's finally finished. Let's just take a quick recap to what my original idea was, just to see whether there's been any minor updates or alterations from my original plan. Oh yes, that's right, a dark mermaid. I believe I specifically used the term nasty. So let's see whether she did turn out nasty and dark after the glitter bomb exploded in my workshop. Well, I'm not sure anyone with that much body glitter could be termed nasty. I think maybe she's edgy. She looks like she'd take a chunk out of your finger. I've had so much fun making this doll. I really hope you have had fun watching my slightly haphazard approach to making this doll. If you have enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. I really want to make more videos. Please leave me some comments and hope to see you again soon. Bye!